All right, it was 10 in the morning in Indianapolis, Indiana, and it's the middle of the summer. And the van, the family van, is parked at the end of the driveway, and it's connected to the Coleman pop-up camper. They're both packed, ready to go. The keys are in the ignition, but we're not ready to leave on family vacation yet because we have a tradition. We have a tradition that we have to do every single time that we go on family vacation, where my three sisters and I are already in the car, and my dad's already in the car, but my mom stays in the house doing things that she needs to do before we can go anywhere. And she has an incredible, never-ending list of things that need to be done. And she has her own special way of doing these things. She has the best way of doing everything. So much so that you can't actually help her with any of the things, because if you try to do it her way, which is the most complicated way possible to do it, but also she's usually right, a better way of doing it, then she'll just stand behind you the entire time and watch you while you try to do it. So you learn not to attempt to help her do any of these chores, and you end up sitting in the car in the driveway waiting to go on vacation at 10 in the morning. My dad is inside, he's negotiating with her like he has to do every single vacation. He's in there saying, oh, you know, okay, if we do these things, will you go then? And then she'll be like, no, wait, there's this thing that has to be done with the garden, and then we have to do this, and there's all these chores. And he's trying to talk her into going. And eventually what will happen, which always happens, is they'll reach a point in the negotiation where she will say, I'm not gonna go, you leave on vacation, I'm just gonna stay here, there's too much to do, and you go. And then my dad convinces her to go, and she finally gets her luggage, and she comes out to the car, and she puts it in the car, and then we leave. That's what usually happens. This time though, it's a little different, because this is one of the last family vacations that we're gonna take camping. And this time, she has started a week beforehand saying that she's not gonna go with us. And this time, my older sister isn't with us. This time, my older sister is out in Palo Alto, California. So we're already a little divided off in the family, and we're gonna visit with her into vacation. And this time I'm 20 and I'm back from college, and I'm sick of this bullshit. I do not want to be there, and I do not want to listen to my parents argue, and I do not want to deal with the next 3 weeks in a car camping with my two sisters and my dad and my mom and listening to them squabble the entire time. So it's 10:15 at this point, and we're still sitting out in the car. And the car is packed. It is absolutely full in every way that you can make it of stuff, because we've done this before, so we know everything that we have to take with us. We've done this particular trip. This will be the 4th time that we've done it. We've driven to Spokane, Washington from Indianapolis, which is 2,000 miles there and 2,000 miles back. And the reason why we do this trip is because my great-grandfather Berkey lives there. And he's on my dad's side, and he's kind of the family patriarch of his side. So we drive all the way out there, and we camp the entire time. And my mom sits in the front seat with triptychs and guidebooks and reads to us from these triptychs and guidebooks the entire time. And she finds the cheapest, most amenity-less of places to stay in. Places without even running water for us to set up a pop-up camper. So there's almost no enjoyment to this trip. It's just getting in a car and driving 6 to 8 hours a day, and then falling asleep in a pop-up camper, and then getting up the next day to an alarm and starting to drive again. Because this is how my family decides we're gonna go on vacation. After 15 minutes, my dad comes out to the car, and he does what he often does, where he takes the keys out of the ignition. He goes, God damn it. And then he says, all right, you guys can open the doors, And then my sister Margaret, who's sitting in the middle seat in the back, she's 16 now. Margaret is also sick of this. She's too old to be doing this vacation. she says, how about if I go in and talk to Mom? And my dad goes, no, you stay in the car, I'll go back in, I think I can get her to come. So my dad goes back inside, and we're still sitting out in the car. It gets to 11 o'clock, we're sitting in the driveway, the van is pointed at the end of the driveway, it's connected to this pop-up camper. I'm talking with Margaret at this point. I'm saying, do you think that we'll actually go today? Because there was a time once where this expanded out to hours, which it's done, but one time we were going to my grandmother's house and we actually didn't leave that day. We stayed out in the car until the evening and it got dark, and then we went inside, and then finally my mom agreed to go, and then we got in there, and then it was 10 o'clock, so we decided to get up the next morning and start over again, and then we left the next day. So I'm talking to my sister, and we're going, I don't know if this is gonna work out. And from the back seat, my littlest sister, Emily, who's 9, again, a big gap in age. Margaret and Emily squabble all the time. Margaret's 16, Emily's 9, she pesters the hell out of her. I'm 20, I'm over being there at all. Emily just starts screaming, let's go from the back seat, because that's all she can do. And she's back there sweating and she's hot because we packed this, like I said, and we figured this out so much that there's no wasted space inside of the van at all. We have travel games and books and pillows and extra sweatshirts packed in around us. And in fact, probably the first thing that Emily did was she probably removed a pillow from her lap, because you're so packed into this van that you even carry stuff on your lap when you go on this, because you need stuff for 3 weeks. We've even packed the entire pop-up camper. The pop-up camper itself actually represents my parents separately, because my father looks at it and he sees it as magical. He sees the engineering as incredible. He sees the glory in it when you crank it up and the top goes up on it, and how you slide out the sides and then you put these canvas sides on it, and the entire thing is this marvel to him, where he talks about how neat it all fits together. Whereas my mom looks at it and she says, we can fit some stuff in there. We can put more blankets and more sleeping bags, and we can get flares in there, and we can fit a bunch of bug spray. And she just packs this thing full up to the gills so that it almost doesn't shut sometimes. We're sitting out there and we're getting ready to go, and Margaret and I are talking about how Mom said that she probably wasn't going to come, and Margaret, who has a mind for negotiation, she ends up becoming a lawyer later. She says that what my dad is going to do is he's probably going to say, how about if we stick around for 2 days, which will be unprecedented. We'll stick around for 2 days, we'll do a bunch of chores, then we'll leave on vacation late by 2 days. Margaret is brilliant. Emily ends up going to NYU. My sister's at Stanford and Palo Alto. My mom is a geneticist, she studied genetics. She's a pediatrician. I'm surrounded by these brilliant women my entire life growing up. And as a result, I get the mistaken impression that actually men are the disadvantaged underdogs, watching my dad deal with it. And my father is this sweet person who's just trying to keep the peace most of the time. What he's doing inside is he's leveraging his job as a lawyer. He works as a public defender, and he has hard luck cases where you just throw yourself on the mercy of the court, or you try to convince your client to listen to you. And when he gets home, he just wants to keep the peace. He just wants it to work out. And he's inside doing this negotiation while we're sitting out in the car sweating. And it gets to noon. And then my dad comes out of the house, and we think he's gonna say, all right, I've negotiated this. But instead he does something he's never done before. He comes to the front, he said, Jeff, get in the front seat, we're leaving. And he slams the side of the van shut, and he gets in the front, and we drive off the end of the driveway, and we head out to I-70, and we leave my mom at home for 3 weeks. Now, these vacations that we do, we usually have all these family legends that we talk about afterwards, about how we were so hungry, or we were so we end up in these strange situations in the Keys where we go to bakeries and we get a key lime pie and we eat it in the parking lot all together and go in 5 minutes later and get another key lime pie from the same people. Or we have all these funny stories we tell. But this vacation, this last family vacation that my mom does not go on, is the one we don't talk about then, that doesn't actually have very many legends from it. So when I was preparing to talk about this today, I thought about this crazy moment when my dad said, we're leaving. And then after that, I couldn't remember a whole lot of the vacation. So I talked to my sisters, who are all brilliant, and they helped me with a lot of the ideas. And I got into my journal. I kept a 140-page journal because I was going to be a famous writer when I was 20. And I started flipping through that to see all the stuff that I wrote. But the funny thing about the journal is it's not true mostly. It's a lot of ideas about short stories. It's very little actually about anything that's happening. My mom used to always say, don't take pictures of the scenery, take pictures of people, because when you look at the landscape to you, they don't mean anything to you. And my journal is mostly just talking about what the sky looks like when you get outside of Missouri, or about what the shapes are of the different telephone poles in the different states. And that's really mostly what it is. There's a few conversations though, and those are the parts that I think matter. I know it's not accurate actually, because I remember in college at the time, there had been a women's studies major that had taken an interest in me one night when we were really stoned, and she had decided to do something with me I'd never done before. And the next morning I was like, that was really great, like this is special, we should hang out. And then she was like, actually it kind of wasn't very special or great. And then I was like, oh, well maybe, we're friends of friends, so maybe if I hang out a bunch, maybe at some point it'll be special again. And I never talk about it in this journal at all, but I know it was a big deal in my head because I'm still embarrassed by how incredibly naive I was at the time about it. I also don't mention my mom in the journal, except for the fact that she's not there, and the fact that she doesn't answer the phone when we try to call her for 3 weeks. So we go out on this vacation, and it's immediately my dad's vacation. We don't stay at the state parks. We stay at KOAs the whole time because my dad's gonna splurge. This is gonna be what he wants to do. So every place we stay, we swim in the swimming pools, and we play miniature golf, and we play basketball on their little courts. And my dad's having a great time. But it's also my dad's vacation in the way that it comes with a curse that he has with technology, where we get to Springfield, Illinois, and immediately the first time he fills up the car, it won't start. And he's got to get a brand new battery put in the van right there at the first stop. And this is notable because in my journal I write that my dad's reaction to it isn't to be upset. My dad's reaction to it is to say, well, that guy was really nice who put the battery in. And he continues doing this as we drive through the whole Southwest. It takes us a week through the Southwest. And I actually kind of start to enjoy myself on the trip. It's going by quickly. I'm like, this 3 weeks may not drag as bad as I think they're going to, because we stop, we're doing all the things he wants to do, but also because he has such a great attitude. We get to the West Coast, and he's looking out the windows of the car, and he's talking about how glorious all of the scenery is. And maybe that's why I write about it so much, because he's saying, oh, look at that, look at those mountains, aren't those incredible? And check out that train off in the distance that's running parallel to us, and look at how blue that little river is right over there. And I know that we continue to be worried about this because whenever he does this, the car swerves. and we have to tell him, Dad, look at the road. So in Alamo Gordo, we try to call my mom, she doesn't answer, and we get a hold of Laura, who's in Palo Alto, who's going to be the first person we're going to visit, my older sister, Laura. And she says we're coming, and that's all we tell her. And this is how my family works, is we show up at her apartment in Palo Alto. She's newly married. We knock on the door, we walk in, we hug her, we hug Ryan, her husband, and Laura looks at all of us, and Laura says, where's mom? And my dad says, she didn't want to come. She had stuff to do at the house. You know how it is. We're really hungry. What's to eat? And that's all he has to say about it. So my sister tries to call my mom a few times, and my mom does not answer the phone. We spend a few days in Palo Alto. We decide that we're going to drive up the coast. The coast is littered with relatives on my dad's side of the family. We stop to see his cousin. We stop to see a great aunt. We end up getting up to Spokane, where we are going to end up visiting my great-grandmother, Hilder. Now, we're not visiting great-grandpa Berkey because he actually died the year before. And what it means is Hilder was his third wife, and she actually didn't have any relation to anyone on that side of the family. She was a great hostess, so whenever we visit in the past, there'd be a family reunion up there. But this time, because great-grandpa Berkey is dead, my dad's side of the family doesn't unite up there. Instead, we visit them each separately. It's like they've lost a town center, or they've moved away, and there's just a bunch of empty storefronts where there used to be a town. Each time that we visit each person, there's this sadness where we talk about what it used to be like when we visited, when Grandpa Berkey was there. And then when we get up to Hilder, she's staying in a very expensive retirement home, but she's deteriorating quickly. She loves it there, the people like her, but her son died recently, and all she has to say over and over again is that she misses him and that she's crazy, is the other thing that she continues to say. So we go on a 3-day trip of taking her out to lunch over and over again, because that's all she can do before she gets tired. And we end up on the final day taking her to a spot in Idaho that she says she wants to go because she sees it in a magazine. That's a restaurant floating on a lake. I believe it's called Coeur d'Alene. And she looks out the window, and my dad points out, wow, look how beautiful the sky is. Look at the water. And she's looking out the window at these planes landing on the water. And it's this big resort with jet skis, and there's some kind of parachuting thing with boats. And she looks out at this and she asks where she is. So we take her back, and it's the last time we'll see her. And we pack up the car, and we leave for the last week of the vacation, which is going to go down through Wyoming. And my dad, for the first time, seems sad. And he says, like, this isn't fun, this is just bitter, actually. But within a couple hours, he starts talking about the snow caps on the mountains and the mountain goats that are out. And his mood comes back almost immediately, which isn't who I am, it's who my dad is. We go to Yellowstone. Yellowstone is great. The trip is wrapping up. I'm gonna get to go home soon. Things are good. And then about 5 minutes outside of Sheridan, Wyoming, which is right in the middle of Wyoming, the car starts to rattle. The van just starts to shake. And it sounds at first like someone's put a wrench inside of an empty paint can and started to shake it. And then it sounds kind of like someone's taken an aluminum bat and hitting a lamp pole over and over again. And the car barely makes it into the front of a KOA, but not deep enough that we're actually fully in, so we have to detach the camper and push it all the way into the KOA into a stop. And then my dad takes, the van gets towed into Sheridan, Wyoming, which is this little town. It's not that little, but it seemed little at the time. And we have to take it to have it looked at, and my dad turns it on, and then it just sounds like someone's just kicking the side of the van while it's on. It's like an old radiator system trying to turn on. It's just that kind of metallic coughing and clanging. And the guy turns it off and says, we need a brand new engine. So now we're stuck in Sheridan, Wyoming for 5 days. And I am pissed off because I want to go back to my life. I want to go back to being at college and not dealing with my parents or thinking about them at all, and just doing my whatever I'm doing with my friends and failing with the women's study major. I did not want this to extend past 3 weeks, but it's going to. And from what I've written down in the journal, my dad is sad too, my dad's having to call all these people using the payphone there and reschedule appointments and hearings and figure it all out. And finally, though, he gets a hold of my mom because we hit the point where we're supposed to be getting home, and she answers the phone. And she says that she didn't answer the phone the entire time because she was afraid that her work was going to call and that they'd find out that she wasn't actually on real vacation. And therefore, she didn't want to have that uncomfortable conversation, which actually I believe is true. That's what she was doing the entire time. And we were trying to, like, I believe this of her. So my memory of Sheridan is that it was sand and it was concrete and there was nothing happening. But now that I'm older, I actually do call my parents occasionally. And I was talking to my dad about this. And before I could say anything about Sheridan, he said, didn't we have a great time in Sheridan, Wyoming? We rented a car and we went up into the mountains there, and they're the Bighorn Mountains, and we walked around. And then we were swimming every day, and we played the golf course enough that you figured out how to handicap our scores. It was so much fun. And I didn't know if I believed him on this. Like, was this actually a vacation for him? I don't know. But the car got fixed, and then we had 2 days to get all the way back to Indianapolis. And the vacation was going to wrap up. And we stopped in South Dakota for the final night. And the next morning, the camper wouldn't close because one of the things snapped on it. And we had to push it down, listening to it break and creak down all the way. And then we attached it back to the van. And then on the final day, we were driving in Iowa, which has to be the flattest, most boring, straightest road in the entire United States. And yeah, there's nothing there at all. It's like really trees are exciting to see in Iowa. And we had to drive 14 hours that day to get back so my dad could work the next day. And he said, I had not driven the entire time, but he said, at the middle of this, after 6 hours, can you drive for 2 hours and I'll drive for 6? And I said, well, yeah, sure. I mean, I can drive more than that if you want to. Because I was 20 and I was like, yeah, I can do this. So I took over driving this van with this camper behind it. And I'm here to tell you that if you drive a van with a camper that's packed to the gills attached to it, you feel every single rock on the road. Every single little bump, every little gust makes that thing start to want to fishtail. In fact, nothing makes it want to start to fishtail. It just always is wanting to go into a big fishtail and pull you off the road. And you can't do anything but just sit there and hold the thing straight, because if you try to overcorrect to stop the fishtail, it just gets worse. So you're driving this thing, and the entire time you have to concentrate on going straighter than you've ever gone before down this road. I had to think, my dad for thousands of miles on many vacations has driven this van with this overpacked camper attached to it, wanting to pull him off the road. And he hasn't taken it on the straightest roads. He's taken it on every road. We've taken it on gravel roads. We've taken it on hairpin turns through mountains. We've taken it on little 2-lane roads. He's had to back it up in towns to get it in a parking spot. And I have no idea how he did that. I really don't. Because me, if I had to do that, I would say this is bullshit. We're gonna fly next time. We got back to Indianapolis. The camper was put in the driveway. And now my parents aren't divorced. My parents are still together. It was 20 years ago. They're still together. And the camper is still there. And it's never been opened again. It's sat there for 20 years rusting with these tires that are flat. They never got any of the food out. So when you ask about it, they say probably mice got into it. And neither one of them is going to move it or get rid of it. And they don't talk about it. They don't talk. It's just sitting there, this broken camper from this vacation. It was the last one that we took as a family. And I think that probably they're going to leave it there. And someday, as kids, we're going to have to get someone to come out with a van and hook it up and point it at the end of the driveway and get it out of there. Thanks, guys.